Welcome to some junk journal snacks. What you see here is my current planner, and you can find the video in which I created it linked below in the description box, as well as my Make It Paris Tea Party, which I have on my pages that you see there. So I asked you in a previous Junk Journal Snacks episode to write me any questions you have about Austria. So while you watch me work on the last page of my May signature, I'm going to answer a question from Jennifer Miller, who wrote, "Since you have lived in both Austria and the US, maybe you could tell us a few everyday things that are different about life in the two countries." Thank you, Jennifer. That is a great question. So to give you a little bit more context, I am Austrian and lived most of my life here in Vienna. When I was 6, our whole family, which was my parents and my 2 older brothers and myself, moved to New York for 2 years because of my dad's job. It was an amazing experience for the whole family, and that's where my love for the US actually started. So we lived in Bronxville, a village in Westchester County, New York, located approximately 15 miles north of Midtown Manhattan. My brothers and I went to public school there, which was very nerve-wracking at first because, of course, we spoke no English at all. And while the other students were having regular classes, I was sitting on the side with earphones and worksheets learning English. But of course, when you're at that age, you learn a language very quickly. So after a few months, I was able to participate in regular classes, and I really enjoyed school. I was also a proud brownie and a Girl Scout. And I had great friends, and our whole family soaked up as much of the US lifestyle as possible, especially knowing that we only had 2 years there. So during that time, we also traveled extensively throughout the US, since my dad was able to take his Austrian vacation days with him to the US, and he had quite a lot left. So as you can imagine, after the 2 years, it was heartbreaking to leave all my friends behind. So after we moved back to Vienna, my parents gave me the opportunity to continue with the American school system. So I was able to go to the American International School here in Vienna, which is also where I graduated from and where I worked previously before I had my own creative business, which is what I'm doing now. So I was super happy about being able to go to the American school. Also because I had lost so much of my German, especially like the reading and writing. It was really terrible. So then after 2 years of business college, my first job was at the US Embassy here in Vienna in the economics department, which is where I met and fell in love with a US Marine. The short version is that we got engaged after about 1.5 years, and I moved with him to Vista, California, where he was stationed in Camp Pendleton at the time. And I lived with him there for 6 months before returning home to prepare for our wedding. So I lived at home with my oldest brother at the time because my parents had moved to Saudi Arabia for a while. And I also went back to work, and I started living the high life, going out all the time and really enjoying my freedom. So that was when I realized I can't go through with it, and I actually canceled our engagement, which was super, super difficult. In another job with another US company, I was able to travel to the Midwest a few times, visiting feed mills with Russian farmers weeks at a time. And I also traveled to the US or Canada almost every summer for over 10 years. So I have made the decision a long time ago that I love traveling in the US and Canada, by the way, as well. But I love living here in Vienna, which maybe is not a huge surprise, especially given that every year from 2009 to 2019, so 10 years in a row, the Mercer's Quality of Living Survey had named Vienna as the best place to live in the whole world. So life is pretty good here, I would say. So finally, to answer your question, Jennifer, I just wanted to give you a little bit of context of how well I know the US so that you would know, can I actually compare living in both countries? So the first thing that comes to my mind is the openness and friendliness of people in the US and Canada. So every time I say US, you can actually add and Canada, because my experiences there were in these matters very similar. I know Canadians don't like being compared to Americans, but you know, coming from Austria, there are similarities for sure. So I find it very easy to make contact with strangers and to have small talk with them. In Vienna, people are a lot more closed. Now, please keep in mind, Vienna is not Austria, just like maybe New York is not the US. You know, Vienna is different, and people in Vienna are known to be unfriendly. The flip side of that is that, in my experience, the connections I made with Americans are a lot of times a little more flaky, meaning it often doesn't go deeper than a superficial small talk. In Vienna, it's more difficult to make contact with others, but I feel like once you make that connection, you usually have a friend for life. I actually Googled that and found the following. When it comes to friendliness, Austria ranks 65th out of 68 countries. And nearly half the expats, namely 48%, find it difficult to make local friends. As a British expat points out, people are not always open to foreigners, or they prefer to stick to their own circle of friends. So there you have it. I also experienced the school systems very differently. Teachers here, at least at the time when I was in school, were more strict, and it was more like the teachers were teaching by explaining their subjects, while in the American school system, you learn more by experiencing things yourself. You have more excursions and assignments where you can figure things out for yourself rather than being told this is how it works. Also, I feel like the relationships with the teacher were much more casual with the American school system than in Austrian schools. I feel like in the American system, you learn to be more independent, you learn to think more on your own, and you are encouraged and praised a lot more by the teachers than you are here. But again, this was my personal experience at the time. Another difference is how meals are eaten. In the US, it was common to eat something small for lunch, like a sandwich or a salad or something quick, and then you would have your main meal with the family for dinner in the evening. Here, it's just the opposite. People usually have their main meal for lunch. So if you work, you would either have a canteen where you can eat a warm lunch with your colleagues, or you might even go out for a proper lunch if you have the time. And then in the evening, you would have a cold meal with the family, mostly bread with cheese and cold cuts and things like that. Another topic is alcohol. So in the US, of course, drinking age is 21, and this is controlled very strictly from my experience. By the way, I realize it's extremely difficult to pay attention to what I'm saying and to see what's happening on the screen, especially at the moment where I'm writing and where you see more text on the right, which is a French poem with the English translation next to it. So if you want to have a look at that, maybe you should pause for a moment, because this is a lot happening at the same time. I'm sorry. Here in Austria, and probably in most of Europe, the drinking age is 18, and even this is not controlled very strictly. So every time I went to the US on vacation and I had a drink, I was asked to show my ID. I remember I was in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace once when I was around 39, I believe, and the waitress asked me for my passport, and she almost fainted when she saw my age, and it made me so happy. What I also love, especially in the southwest of the US, is the vast landscape. For example, when you travel by car through, say, Nevada, Utah, or Arizona, and the horizon is just so far away, and you can see all this land in front of you. It's absolutely breathtaking for me because in Europe, of course, everything is smaller and you can never see that far. Your gaze is blocked by buildings or valleys or mountains. Okay, I guess if you're on top of a mountain, you can obviously see far, but it's a completely different view and experience. So I don't know if I'm explaining that well. But speaking of smaller, it fascinates me how everything is large in the US. The houses, the cars, the portions in restaurants, even the portions at fast food restaurants, your fridges, your freezers, the oven, the washing machine. Here it's really a luxury to have like a large American style refrigerator. Usually we don't have space in our small kitchens and they are rather expensive. I also received a question from another Jennifer, Jennifer Campbell, so you Jennifers rock, saying, I too am interested in what it is like to live in Vienna. Were you born there? Have you lived in Vienna all your life? What is your favorite tourist attraction there and why? Pictures would be nice. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for this question. So I was not born in Vienna. I was born in Graz, which is about 2 hours south of Vienna by car. It's the second largest city in Austria with a population of about 280,000. So in comparison, Vienna, we have about 1.9 million. And all of Austria has about 9 million currently. I still have a lot of family there, but I cannot imagine living anywhere smaller than in Vienna. I believe I have answered the question already about whether I have lived here all my life. My favorite tourist attraction is, without question, Schönbrunn Castle, which was the Habsburg summer residence, which, not surprisingly, is also Austria's most popular tourist attraction. But I like it best because of the beautiful big gardens where I used to go jogging and walking a lot, and I really hope to be able to do more of that again once my broken ankle finally heals. Many of you are surely aware that Vienna is also known as the city of music because many famous classical musicians such as Beethoven and Mozart lived here in Vienna. And Vienna is also said to be the city of dreams because it was home to the world's first psychoanalyst, Sigmund Freud. And to conclude this episode, I would like to read you a statement about Vienna from a website called theculturemap.com. Vienna is the Audrey Hepburn of capital cities. Elegant, sophisticated, beautiful, and glamorous. Commonly associated with opera and imperial history, few places compare with its grand museums, Art Nouveau architecture, open courtyards, cobbled streets, and alabaster buildings glimmering with gold. So there you have it. Come visit if you ever have a chance. Thanks so much for watching. Love you guys. Mwah, mwah.